Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are plunging headfirst into a source that pulls back the curtain on one of the most iconic origin stories in Silicon Valley history.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Jimmy Soni's incredible book, The Founders, which takes us on a wild ride through the creation and early days of PayPal.
That's right. And this isn't just some, dry corporate history. It's an intensely detailed look at the people behind PayPal, their often surprising backgrounds, their struggles,
Yeah.
and how their paths intersected and sometimes, well, violently collided during a truly chaotic time in the tech world. Sony had amazing access. It gives us a really unique perspective.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive, drawing from the sources you've shared, is really to unpack the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight buried within this book.
Right.
Think of it as your shortcut, to understanding the complex, often turbulent, and frankly surprising saga of PayPal's birth, directly from the people who lived it.
Yeah, it's quite a saga.
We'll explore everything from the founders' early lives, the sheer grit it took to build companies from scratch, to intense competition, dramatic internal conflicts, overcoming massive challenges like relentless fraud and tricky regulation, and that wild journey to IPO and eventual acquisition.
It's a story packed with ambition, resilience,
Totally.
and the messy, brilliant process that laid the groundwork for modern digital payments.
It really did.
And what stands out, I think, is how the foundational challenges they faced, from technical hurdles to the complex dynamics between these really strong-willed individuals,
Right.
didn't just shape PayPal itself, but really influenced so much of the tech landscape that came afterward. There are lessons here about building companies that are still incredibly relevant today.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting right at the very beginning. The building blocks, where did these incredible minds come from? Because the book spends a lot of time showing how those diverse origins shaped their approaches later on.
It really does. Let's begin with Max Levchin. His early life was marked by immense challenge, which I think profoundly shaped his later resilience.
Yeah, how so?
Well, he was just 10 years old when the Chernobyl disaster struck back in February 1986.
Wow, 10.
Yeah. And the book mentions this eerie detail about how Soviet Life magazine had just months before portrayed Pripyat, near the reactor, so optimistically.
Oh, the irony.
Right. So the sudden evacuation must have been this stark, terrifying contrast to that image.
That event sounds absolutely terrifying, and it clearly impacted his family deeply. The source notes that his mother, an astrophysicist, showed incredible strength and determination during that period, something that definitely left an impression on Max, you'd imagine.
Right. Then you have the heightened political tension of the early 80s, which pushed the Levchin family to immigrate to the U.S.
So?
They faced, significant cultural adaptation challenges, but they also found this renewed sense of opportunity, particularly in education. And Max really leveraged these opportunities.
How did he do that?
He just immersed himself in the burgeoning tech scene, especially at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, UIUC.
Ah, UIUC. That seems like a really crucial environment for him, not just academically, but socially too, right?
Absolutely. He got deeply involved in the computer science community there, joined the Association for Computing Machinery, ACM,
Okay.
and importantly, he collaborated with innovative peers, people like Luke Nosek and Scott Bannister. The source describes their camaraderie as based on these shared values of, rebellion and creativity.
So these weren't just college friendships then?
Not at all. They formed the basis for crucial future ventures. These connections were key.
Got it.
And it wasn't just theoretical work either. He was getting his hands dirty with early entrepreneurial efforts.
Like what?
Well, there was SponsorNet, a classified advertising venture. It failed, but the book highlights it taught invaluable lessons about business operations, creativity in tech, collaboration under pressure.
Okay, so learning from failure early on.
Exactly. He later worked on Net Momentum, which aimed to create classified ads for newspapers, also faced challenges.
And eventually, he created NetMeridian, which saw some success, particularly with a product called ListBot.
That's the one. ListBot helped solidify his position, even though, as the book details, he was navigating significant personal financial struggles during this entire time.
Really? While building companies?
Yeah, he was taking these lucrative programming jobs just to make ends meet while trying to build these startups.
That kind of pressure at such a young age. It's hard to imagine.
It really is. And after graduating, with support from his friends, he made that pivotal move to Silicon Valley after selling NetMeridian's products.
Oh, the move west.
Yeah, That sale marked a significant shift towards the epicenter of the tech boom, putting him right in the middle of where everything was happening.
Okay, so while Max was facing those intense personal and financial hurdles and honing his technical skills, Peter Thiel was on a different, though equally formative, journey.
Right. Thiel's path, as described in the book, was characterized by this fiercely competitive education, like from middle school right through to Stanford Law.
Stafford Law, okay.
It really instilled a mindset heavily geared towards achievement and, a strong sense of intellectual confidence, you could say.
And his involvement with the Stanford Review newspaper was a key part of that.
Definitely. The source highlights it as more than just a publication. It was a platform for sparking intense intellectual debates on campus, fostering a culture of innovation and, nonconformity.
Questioning things.
Exactly. It was about questioning established ideas, which really became a hallmark of his approach later on.
So after law school, he formed Thiel Capital. What's fascinating here, and something the book points out, is the initial lack of formal structure. Like almost no employees, no formal office space.
Right. Ken Howery joined him, apparently intrigued by the sheer possibilities Thiel saw, despite how abstract it all was. It sounds like it was built purely on vision at first.
Just an idea, basically.
Pretty much. And they recognized the opportunities exploding during the dot-com boom. Thiel sought office space in Menlo Park, starting business operations from, wait for it, a small broom closet.
A broom closet.
Seriously, talk about a humble beginning for what would become such influential figures.
And their early investments weren't all hits, I gather.
Not at all. The source points to an investment in Luke Nosek's smart calendar product, which didn't work out.
Okay.
But Thiel derived this critical and perhaps counterintuitive lesson from this failure. He saw that in Silicon Valley, failure, if you learn from it, could actually enhance your reputation rather than diminish it.
Huh. That's interesting. Failure makes you stronger, kind of.
Sort of. It provided valuable, hard-won learning about competition and the dynamics between co-founders. This perspective, viewing setbacks as necessary steps towards greater understanding and resilience, is a really powerful takeaway from his story.
It fundamentally reframes how you approach risk, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Now let's bring in Elon Musk. His early financial journey began after emigrating from South Africa with his brother Kimball during his college years at Queen's University in Ontario.
Okay.
The book describes him as always networking, always seeking complex questions and answers. That restless curiosity was evident early on.
And he had a really strong negative perception of traditional banks, right?
Yeah.
Viewing them as incredibly slow, bureaucratic.
Oh, yeah. Resistant to innovation, even with the internet emerging. He saw existing online banking services as completely inadequate, just digital versions of the same slow processes.
And by the late 1990s, that frustration had crystallized into this incredibly ambitious idea.
The big one, a comprehensive digital financial services platform. He envisioned a true one-stop shop for all banking and financial services online.
He worked multiple internships while briefly at Stanford for graduate school, exploring tech and startups. But that banking idea really grabbed him.
Yeah, he was inspired by discussions with people like Peter Nicholson from Scotiabank, a connection that reinforced his thinking about the potential merger of finance and technology.
Which led him to leave Stanford after just 2 days.
Famously, yes. He chose to defer his graduate studies to explore these tech opportunities more fully.
And like Thiel, Musk learned from early entrepreneurial efforts, too.
Definitely. The source references his experience with Zip2, his first company, highlighting the lesson that success involves quickly discovering and discarding wrong ideas.
Adaptability.
Exactly. It emphasized the importance of adaptability and iteration in the incredibly fast-moving tech world of the late 90s.
So you see how these seemingly disparate paths, shaped by everything from global tragedy and immigration to intense academic competition and early entrepreneurial missteps, were all converging. They were all driven by this potent mix of ambition, a deep-seated frustration with the status quo in established industries like finance,
Right.
and a fundamental belief in the transformative power of technology to build something entirely new. And this convergence is what leads directly to the formation of two key companies that would soon become fierce rivals: FieldLink, which became Confinity, and X.com.
Exactly. Let's start with Max Levchin's venture, initially called FieldLink. Max was a brilliant engineer, but he knew he preferred focusing on the technology, so he needed a CEO.
And Thiel stepped in.
Peter Thiel stepped in temporarily to fill that role, bringing his strategic mind to the nascent company.
There was an immediate urgency to hire key engineering talent, right? Levchin reached out to former classmates from UIUC.
People like UPenn and Russell Simmons. And the book details just how much conviction Levchin needed. He had to overcome their reluctance to join unproven startup, even reassure Pan's parents about stability.
Wow.
There's this great detail about Simmons and Pan forming a Levchin pact, promising to look out for each other if things went south. It speaks volumes about the risk and the trust in those early days.
It really underscores the human element of these startups, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Expanding the team continued with Luke Nosek joining. Interestingly, the source suggests Nosek was drawn less by the initial concept of mobile security and more by the team dynamics, the chance to work with his friends again.
Ah, the team aspect.
Yeah, Nosek became essential in marketing and strategy, and that emphasis on teamwork and trust, built from their previous experiences together, this network hiring sort of effect, was absolutely crucial for attracting talent and moving fast.
FieldLink was quickly rebranded to Confinity. That wasn't just a name change, though.
No, it reflected a significant strategic shift. They pivoted from mobile security, their initial focus, to digital payment solutions after recognizing a much bigger market opportunity in the peer-to-peer space.
Okay, so they spotted the payments opportunity.
They secured some early funding, about $500,000, and proposed their mobile wallet concept. But pitching these new digital currency concepts faced significant challenges.
Skepticism from investors.
Huge skepticism about the feasibility, the regulatory hurdles. It led to multiple failed fundraising attempts. This was uncharted territory.
Things really shifted when Nokia Ventures invested $4.5 million, didn't they?
Big time. This didn't just provide crucial capital, it gave them credibility and strategic guidance, particularly around mobile payment systems, which aligned with Nokia's core business then.
Product development sounds like it was intense. That beaming at Bucks
Oh,
event.
yeah, a period of frantic work. The source details that famous event, intended as this splashy demo to showcase their money-beaming tech using Palm Pilots for a $4.5 million transaction between Thiel and Nosek.
High-stakes demo.
Extremely. There were numerous technical challenges leading up to it, right down to a critical code compilation error just days before the demo was supposed to happen. The stress must have been unbelievable.
But it worked.
Despite the stress and lack of sleep, the event went ahead, the payment was successfully transmitted. It generated media buzz, which was the goal. But here's where it gets really interesting and provides a crucial lesson. The anticipated user adoption for the infrared beaming feature simply did not materialize. As the source puts it, they were hosed in terms of actual user numbers from that specific feature.
So the cool tech demo didn't translate to users.
Not directly. And this leads to a pivotal learning moment. They were analyzing user behavior, trying to figure out why their cool beaming tech wasn't catching on.
Yeah.
And they discovered users were using the person-to-person payment feature, but they were doing it via email, not the infrared beaming.
Finding workarounds.
Exactly. This led to the crucial realization. Money beaming via infrared was just a cool, flashy feature. Email payments were the core product users actually wanted and were finding ways to use.
Listening to the users, even indirectly.
Precisely. This ability to listen and adapt fundamentally shifted their product trajectory and saved the company. It's a powerful reminder that user behavior should drive product development, not just the initial cool idea.
Their hiring process even had quirky elements, like the aura test that Peter Thiel used.
Yeah, to ensure culture fit beyond just technical skills. And they physically outgrew their spaces, moving to 165 University Avenue, famously a former Google office, symbolizing their growth and rising ambition. That address itself felt like stepping up in the Silicon Valley hierarchy.
Okay. Meanwhile, Elon Musk was building X.com. His vision was that broad, comprehensive digital finance entity, that financial superstore he'd imagined.
Right, aiming to be the Amazon of finance.
But X.com faced early struggles too, maybe even more chaotic than Confinity's.
Oh, definitely. The company was in disarray after key departures. Recruiting was intensely challenging. Engineer Scott Alexander described a chaotic environment with very high expectations from Musk, a place where you were expected to deliver at an insane pace.
Musk's venture capital strategy evolved though, right? Initially resistant.
Yeah, resistant due to past negative experiences, but he eventually secured significant VC, notably from Sequoia Capital with Michael Moritz.
That's big validation.
Huge. It not only bolstered his personal investment, he was putting massive amounts of his own money in, but perhaps more importantly, it validated X.com's potential in the eyes of the market and competitors.
And the book highlights his storytelling.
Yeah, Musk's powerful storytelling abilities, how he framed X.com's disruptive potential, were crucial in attracting that support from top-tier VCs.
He prioritized hiring for diversity of thought and background, bringing in talent from various sectors, including traditional finance.
Right, creating a dynamic, sometimes clashing environment. It was a high-performance culture with strong benefits, aiming to attract the best, and Musk's intense work ethic set the tone working alongside teams, sometimes literally sleeping at the office on a beanbag chair.
But the product development faced challenges because of the sheer ambition.
Exactly. Despite Musk's lofty vision for a full-service platform, it was difficult to translate that into tangible, functioning products quickly. Progress was minimal on some fronts initially.
Marketing and launch were aggressive, though.
Very. Musk used media shrewdly to generate excitement around X.com, marketing its potential and vision even before the comprehensive product suite was fully functional. It was about creating buzz and anticipation.
Team dynamics sound like a mix of intensity and scrappiness.
Definitely. Often contrasting sharply with the more traditional corporate environments some hires came from. There was this relentless push for rapid progress.
And technical architecture choices were a source of debate. Microsoft versus Linux.
A big one. They opted for Microsoft technologies like Windows and SQL Server over Linux, a decision driven primarily by the need for quicker initial development under Musk's demands for speed. But it sparked considerable debate, especially among the original Confinity engineers who favored Linux for stability and scalability.
And a key piece of timing for X.com was the repeal of Glass-Steagall.
Yes, in late 1999, this act had separated commercial and investment banking since the Depression. Its repeal allowed a wider range of financial services, banking, investments, insurance to be offered by a single entity.
Which aligned perfectly with Musk's financial superstore vision.
Perfectly. They launched their core money transfer service over Thanksgiving weekend in 1999. The initial transaction was successful, marking a significant turning point. They were live.
So just 4 months after its somewhat tumultuous beginnings, X.com had evolved from an idea and a chaotic office into a functioning platform with funding, a product, and an expanding team.
Right. You have these two parallel stories of ambitious startups, both rapidly building, refining their visions based on user feedback or lack thereof.
And heading for an inevitable collision course as they both landed on the email payment strategy.
What happened next was this frankly astonishing and unexpected rapid customer growth for both X.com and Confinity simultaneously post-launch. The book describes it vividly, this tidal wave of users.
Musk's forecasts, which some may be dismissed as overly optimistic.
They were rapidly realized. X.com employees saw exponential growth, going from just a handful of beta users on launch day to thousands within weeks. Confinity saw similar growth.
But this rapid increase, while exciting, brought immense, almost crushing challenges.
Oh, huge challenges. Server overload was common. Their infrastructure just couldn't keep up. There were significant security issues. Vulnerabilities were discovered. A major flaw was even highlighted by the media.
Public scrutiny panic.
Yeah, exactly. Customer complaints surged dramatically. Service disruptions, failed transactions, excruciatingly long waits for support. Employees themselves struggled to even use the company's own product reliably.
It's a paradox the source really drives home.
Yeah.
Growth amidst crisis. Despite the security concerns, the negative publicity, the terrible customer service.
User signups continued to surge exponentially. It was a sign that they were solving a fundamental problem, even if their execution was, well, messy.
And the absolute key driver for this simultaneous growth.
The success of person-to-person payments via email for both companies. This feature rapidly gained traction because it solved a real immediate problem for people needing a convenient way to transfer money online.
Especially outside banking hours or between individuals.
Right. And referral incentives, like cash bonuses for signing up new users and getting them to add a credit card or bank account, played a crucial and very expensive role here.
Driving user signups and network effects.
Aggressively. The more people on the system, the more useful it is to everyone.
And that crucial connection with online auction platforms, particularly eBay, was immense, a real game changer.
Huge. They saw incredible organic growth because users on eBay, buyers and sellers, desperately needed convenient ways to transfer money, especially for small transactions where credit cards were too expensive or cumbersome. Their services quickly became essential infrastructure.
As Confinity grew rapidly, they made significant leadership changes to try and professionalize. Reid Hoffman came in.
Right, they recruited Reid Hoffman as COO, specifically aiming to bring some order to the previous unstructured chaos. The book highlights Hoffman's diplomatic style and his focus on building strategic partnerships as crucial during this period.
They even got acquisition offers.
They did, but remained cautious, recognizing the intrinsic value of their rapidly growing user base and evolving tech.
X.com also saw restructuring, with Bill Harris becoming CEO.
Yes, a more experienced financial executive stepped in, though Musk remained heavily involved, and his earlier vision still influenced the company's direction, often creating tension.
And this period of parallel growth and user acquisition directly led into what the source calls the widget wars in late 1999 and early 2000.
Yep. The transition from friendly neighbors, located just blocks apart, to direct rivals was almost instantaneous.
Driven by both realizing email payments were the winning strategy.
Exactly. They were now competing head-to-head for the exact same users, particularly on eBay.
The initial camaraderie, engineers sharing notes, that evaporated.
Quickly deteriorated following rumors of X.com's incredibly lucrative sign-up incentives. X.com was burning cash to acquire users at an astonishing rate.
Prompting paranoia at Confinity.
Total paranoia. They feared being outspent and outgrown.
There was active intelligence and suspicion on both sides.
Oh yeah. David Wallace at Confinity noticed a suspicious increase in X.com user signups happening at Confinity's office, people signing up for the competitor from their desks.
Wow.
Simultaneously, Musk at X.com was observing suspiciously high signups and trying to identify threats. The source highlights these high-stakes tactics and the significant cash burn involved.
Time to market was absolutely critical here.
Crucial. Confinity's earlier adoption and strategic focus on eBay gave them a demonstrable advantage in that specific, vital marketplace.
And the network effects were playing a major accelerating role. This was a market dynamic where the winner was likely to take all, wasn't it?
Pretty much, or at least the vast majority. The competition quickly became existential. They were fighting for survival.
There was also a significant contraclash between the two companies that heightened the tension.
Definitely. Thiel's competitive nature, the mafia culture at Confinity, clashed with Musk's intensity, his relentless drive, and the more traditional finance people he brought into X.com. These different approaches created friction even before they were unified.
Recognizing the strategic necessity to avoid mutual destruction, Thiel initiated merger talks.
Yes, with Musk and Bill Harris at Sequoia Capital. Mike Moritz at Sequoia, an investor in both, also pushed for it, seeing the overlap and the waste.
But there were concerns about power imbalance, Musk's resistance to equal terms.
Right. Musk felt X.com was bigger and should absorb Confinity, not merge as equals.
And this sets the scene for the legendary meeting that culminated in the merger. A meeting with a rather dramatic prelude.
Oh, yeah. A meeting that began with quite an entrance, as described in the source, a detail that's become almost mythical in Silicon Valley lore. Early 2000, Thiel and Musk were scheduled to meet with Moritz at Sequoia.
And Musk offered Thiel a ride in his new McLaren F1.
His newly purchased $1 million McLaren F1, described vividly a work of art, incredibly fast, but also pointedly noted as dangerous for inexperienced drivers.
One of only 7 in the U.S. then. A symbol.
A huge symbol of extreme wealth and risk. And demonstrating that risk during the drive, Musk accelerated to show Thiel the car's power but lost control, crashing into an embankment.
No. Seriously.
Seriously. Miraculously, neither was seriously injured, but the car was extensively damaged, undrivable. They had to find another way to the meeting, arriving late and no doubt shaken.
That's same.
The source uses this McLaren incident as a powerful, perhaps even literal metaphor for this period in tech entrepreneurship.
How so?
It illustrates the duality of risk-taking and accountability, the boldness and ambition needed to build something new, which could lead to innovation like the merger, versus the perils of unchecked ambition and rapid expansion, especially amidst an unstable market.
It highlights that entrepreneurship, like driving that car, demands not just boldness, but skill, restraint, awareness of dangers.
Exactly. It's a potent image of the era, fast, exciting, and potentially disastrous. And they arrived on a merger meeting having just literally crashed their $1 million symbol of ambition. You have to imagine that set a certain tone.
I bet. Amidst this chaos, the book mentions Musk's foresight, predicting the dot-com crash.
Yeah, despite the bubble's exuberance, he predicted an impending market collapse, the tech wreck, and even suggested reallocating some funds to short the market, to bet against it.
A radical idea, then.
Totally. Led to internal tensions, contrasting sharply with the board's view focused on growth at all costs.
The merger agreement that eventually resulted from those tense discussions created a unified front, though.
Right. It pooled resources, user bases, talent, aiming to dominate together, neutralize their biggest competitor, each other, and let them leverage those network effects without the drain of fighting.
But the post-merger period, as often happens, brought significant operational and cultural challenges.
Big time. The newly combined company got bogged down in lengthy meetings, bureaucracy, power struggles, hindering that innovative drive. CEO Bill Harris struggled to unify the teams, maintain momentum. Tensions grew over strategic direction financing, customer incentives.
And the customer service crisis, already bad, deepened dramatically.
Oh, it was a nightmare. Thousands of calls and complaints daily, completely overwhelming the small support team. Service disruptions, failed transactions, long waits, escalated complaints, even threats from angry customers.
Employees couldn't even use the product reliably.
Which tells you how bad it was. Initial attempts at outsourcing customer support were ineffective and costly.
Here's where an innovative, almost accidental solution emerged from an unexpected place. Julie Anderson in Nebraska.
Exactly, highlighting the power of resourcefulness. Anderson, working in operations, took it upon herself out of sheer necessity and frustration to train her family and friends in Omaha, Nebraska, to form a local customer service operation.
Unconventional. Hiring outside the Bay Area bubble.
Totally. Relying on trust and personal connection, and it drastically improved response times and user satisfaction.
The Nebraska Center quickly outperformed the earlier attempts.
By a mile. It expanded rapidly and became absolutely essential to PayPal's customer support. It shows how sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places, born out of necessity and dedication. Great example of adaptability.
Despite operational wins like Nebraska, internal conflict was simmering. Dissatisfaction with Bill Harris's leadership grew.
Yeah, many felt he wasn't moving fast enough, wasn't aligned with the original tech-focused vision. Key figures, including Elon Musk and David Sachs, the COO, initiated what became known as the Nut House coup.
The Nut House coup. Why that name?
Named, ironically, after the building where some of the plotting happened, they planned a dramatic putsch, essentially a rebellion. If Harris wasn't removed as CEO, Musk, Sachs, Levchin, and their key supporters would resign en masse.
An ultimatum to the board.
Exactly. The board faced a difficult decision, but ultimately voted to remove Harris. This allowed Elon Musk to take the helm as CEO again.
A pivotal moment. This happened shortly after Thiel resigned as interim CEO.
Right. Thiel had stepped down, partly due to exhaustion, believing he was more visionary than manager, and felt it was the right time before a potential IPO.
Musk's ascension back to CEO marked a significant shift then. Back to speed.
Immediately. He emphasized a return to a fast-paced, aggressive environment, one that could adapt quickly and cut through the bureaucracy that had started to form. A sharp contrast to Harris, intended to reignite that startup intensity.
So with Musk back in charge as CEO of the newly merged X.com, things shifted dramatically again. The book details his immediate changes.
Right, aimed at injecting speed and focus. He refocused the company with a new executive structure, 7 direct reports, ensuring direct oversight.
And notably, despite previous tension, he appointed Peter Thiel as chairman of the board.
Yeah, a strategic move signaling stability after the turmoil of cycling through CEOs. It also ensured Thiel's strategic guidance remained central.
Cultural shifts in organizational structure were key to Musk's plan. Semi-independent teams.
Right. Engineering teams worked semi-independently with product managers acting like mini CEOs for their areas. This was aimed squarely at addressing that startup paradox, where increasing size actually reduces productivity.
Try and keep things fast.
Exactly. Enhance rapid iteration, empower teams, decentralize project management.
The work environment under Musk was notoriously demanding, though.
Infamous. Long hours, caffeine-fueled, prioritizing immediate results, sometimes over traditional employee well-being. The absence of large, formal meetings was deliberate, meant to disrupt traditional banking culture and reestablish a dynamic, hacking-focused startup mentality.
Still camaraderie, but intense pressure.
Definitely. Quirky rituals, strong bonds, but all set against this backdrop of relentless pressure to perform.
Product development saw key advancements under this renewed focus. Redesigned site, features for high-risk merchants.
Yes, and a major focus on encouraging users to link bank accounts, because that incurred significantly lower fees for PayPal than credit cards, improving their razor-thin margins.
And the innovative solution for bank verification emerged then, the random deposit method.
Crucial breakthrough from Sanjay Bhargava. Instead of mailing voided checks, they'd send 2 small random deposits, and the user entered the amounts back into the platform to verify. Streamlined authentication significantly.
Reduce friction for users.
Massively. But internal conflicts persisted and even intensified under Musk. A major one was the technical architecture debate.
The Windows versus Linux fight again.
Musk pushing hard for Microsoft Windows, which he found familiar and believed allowed faster development in some areas, strongly resisted by original Confinity engineers who favored Linux for stability and scalability at that level.
A fundamental disagreement about the foundation.
Not just preference, yeah. Then there was the major brand identity conflict. Musk strongly preferred X.com, representing his broader financial ecosystem vision.
The financial superstore idea.
Right. Others, especially the original PayPal team, felt the PayPal brand should take precedence it was established, represented their core niche, and was a strategic asset they feared losing.
Reflecting deeper strategic disagreements about the company's identity.
Exactly. Was it a revolutionary bank or a niche payment system? Operational challenges continued, power struggles were constant. Musk's push for rapid overhaul, especially the Windows transition, created immense tension, often slower progress despite pressure and bonuses.
Employee frustration over delays, perceived disconnection.
Yeah, between Musk's pop-level priorities and the practical realities engineers faced trying to keep the lights on while rebuilding mid-flight.
These tensions escalated, leading to a clandestine movement among some executives, like Levchin and Sachs, to limit Musk's control.
Right, subtly working to assert influence, particularly over technical direction.
The source introduces Roelof Botha around this time, playing a crucial role on the financial side.
Yes, Botha came from actuarial science, driven partly by wanting to establish his own identity outside his prominent family in South Africa. He initially declined Musk, but was intrigued by X.com, especially email payments, though he saw significant financial risks.
How did he end up joining?
A personal financial crisis led him to seek part-time work from Musk, eventually leading him full-time after a notoriously challenging interview with Thiel involving a complex brain teaser.
Testing his problem-solving skills.
Intensely. He quickly developed a more intricate financial model. His actuarial expertise proved invaluable. He identified serious discrepancies in projections, especially related to chargebacks and fraud losses, using advanced techniques.
Quantifying risk others hadn't seen.
Exactly. He strongly advocated for adjustments, showing how critical data-driven financial insights could inform strategy and potentially avert crises invisible to those focused just on growth.
His story highlights the value of specialized expertise.
Absolutely. He also had mentorship with Meg Whitman, CEO of eBay, whose candid statement about crushing PayPal highlighted the intense competitive pressure.
Wow, direct threat.
Yeah. Botha experienced the internal conflicts firsthand. Linux Microsoft, Musk's vision versus others' focus. His story underscores the importance of data-driven decision-making and proactive financial analysis in that chaos.
All these issues, technical debt, cultural clashes, brand debate, operational frustrations, financial risks, culminated in the second major leadership upheaval.
The coup against Musk. While Musk was flying to New York for a crucial fundraising trip, Levchin and Sachs, leveraging the built-up dissatisfaction, led the charge.
And the board voted to remove him.
Yes, influenced by key investors and internal unrest, they voted him out as CEO.
The aftermath, Musk's reaction, is described with surprising nuance. Thiel became CEO.
Right. Musk's reaction, as detailed, was a mix of humor, self-reflection, maybe pragmatic graciousness. He accepted the decision, focused on building future bridges.
Phrases like turn the other cheek, not wanting to attack my baby.
Suggesting a continued emotional investment, it shows a capacity for learning from setbacks. He recognized lessons learned, need for clear communication, alignment admitted he could have done better.
Resilience, pivoting instead of fighting.
Exactly. Instead of fighting for his old job, he almost immediately pivoted to new ventures. SpaceX started shortly after gaining liquidity from the eventual PayPal IPO. Shows how setbacks can fuel greater achievements.
Complex workplace relationships then, loyalties tested.
For sure. Lots of emotions among employees witnessing that drama.
So with Peter Thiel, now firmly in place as CEO after the coup against Musk, the focus shifted dramatically to stabilizing, getting operations in order, innovating and tackling major threats, especially fraud, and the need for a sustainable business model.
Right. Thiel's leadership reinforced that culture of merit over traditional experience, prioritizing raw talent, intellectual horsepower, relentless work ethic. This attracted sharp innovators, allowed agile responses, which was crucial given the scale of challenges.
And the most pressing challenge, the one Thiel zeroed in on immediately, was fraud.
The fraud crisis. It wasn't just a problem, it was existential. Thiel famously stated flatly, if the fraud thing is not solved, we're gonna die.
Not hyperbole.
No. Sophisticated criminals, later revealed as skilled Russian hackers, Vasily Gorshkov and Alexei Ivanov, were systematically undermining the business with elaborate schemes costing millions. This instilled a cultural shift towards proactive, almost obsessive problem-solving focused on fraud prevention,
This led to vital, groundbreaking innovations in fraud prevention.
far beyond industry standards then. Levchin and his team developed the Gosbeck-Levchin test, those squiggly letters you type.
Ah, the precursor to CAP-THA.
Exactly. And they developed the sophisticated IJOR system, an advanced numerically driven risk management engine using complex algorithms to detect fraudulent patterns in real time.
IJOR's development highlights teamwork. Engineers, analysts, interns like Robert Frezza.
Right. Collaboration was key. The book tells Frezza's story, his passion, dedication, mentorship, his lasting legacy in IJOR despite his tragically short life. Shows how different viewpoints enhance their ability to combat complex fraud rings.
A constant challenge was balancing robust security with maintaining an inviting user experience.
Extremely difficult. They needed to avoid the draconian measures of competitors that made products frustrating. This focus on user experience, even while battling massive fraud losses, $1.5 million lost to Gorshkov-Ivanov alone helped attract and retain users.
Gave them a competitive edge despite the bleeding.
Yeah. This brings us to another critical turning point. The shift from free to paid services, internally nicknamed Use the Force.
Playful name for a tough transition.
Because the original free model was simply unsustainable given the cost transaction processing, fraud protection, customer service. They were losing money on many transactions, especially credit cards.
They needed revenue, especially from high-volume users like eBay sellers.
Exactly. Align costs with usage. This led to the upsell campaign, encouraging users utilizing PayPal for Business to upgrade to paid business or premier accounts. Paul Martin and Eric Jackson led this effort.
A deliberate transition from always free, initially framed as voluntary.
Right. Nudging eBay sellers, many not seeing themselves as traditional businesses, into the fee structure without causing a massive exodus.
But when it launched, it was met with a storm of complaints and criticism on eBay message boards.
Immediately. Users felt deeply deceived, betrayed by the initial free promise. Paul Martin, monitoring the boards, knew the intensity of the anger. The official communication, framing it as a reminder of existing policy, didn't help much.
Despite the anger, the initial metrics were surprisingly positive, nearly 20% conversion.
Counterintuitive, right? Only a small fraction closed accounts. It was a critical learning about pricing inelasticity, especially with a deeply integrated service.
Users were furious but felt stuck.
Pretty much. PayPal was so integrated into their lives' businesses, especially on eBay, the pain of switching outweighed the anger. User habits were hard to change. As the source quotes, "Human beings are creatures of momentum."
Recognizing the stickiness, they implemented a force upgrade.
An escalating strategy shifted responsibility to the recipient. Users receiving payments over certain limits had upgrade to continue receiving them.
Predictably, renewed outcry and accusations of betrayal.
Big time. Ethical dilemmas debated internally breaking the promise versus necessity for survival. The argument that won. Without changes, the platform risked shutting down entirely.
A necessary evil, in their view.
Essentially. Despite the outrage, the transition worked. Within a month, around 95% of targeted accounts upgraded. PayPal became sustainable, revenue-generating, validated the tough strategic shift, solidified their place, showed sometimes hard decisions about pricing are essential, even at the cost of initial goodwill.
And as they navigated these immense internal challenges, they were also facing significant external threats on two major fronts.
Right, let's talk about crime in progress and that specific, sophisticated hacker threat costing them millions. The source details Vasily Gorshkov and Alexei Ivanov, skilled hackers from Chelyabinsk, Russia, aliases Kvakin and Substa.
Motivated by profit, but also maybe aspirations for a legitimate tech future.
The book suggests that complexity, they saw themselves as highly skilled.
The FBI got involved in Operation Flyhook, a sting operation.
Fascinating counterintelligence. The FBI used a facade security company, Invitus Security, to lure the hackers to the U.S. under pretense of job opportunities.
Allowed them to meet face-to-face, gather evidence.
Exactly. Exploited the hackers' overconfidence, their belief they were untouchable in Russia, famously stating, "We don't think about the FBI at all because they can't get us in Russia."
Wow.
Yeah.
The scope of their hacking was vast, though. Beyond PayPal,
Targeted numerous U.S. companies, stole thousands of credit cards, defrauded institutions like PayPal of that $1.5 million. Sophisticated tactics, fake accounts, stolen identities, manipulating eBay auctions.
Collaboration with law enforcement wasn't always smooth.
No. The FBI connected with PayPal via John Kothenek, head of security, and Levchin. They provided technical evidence, but communication wasn't always formal. Source mentioned sarcasm, maybe frustration with law enforcement's pace or understanding of digital crime then.
PayPal's response went beyond just reporting, enhancing security, building systems like IGR.
They had to. They were grappling with the newness of digital crimes, often struggled to get agencies to fully engage or understand the tech complexities. PayPal had to fill that gap itself.
The legal actions against Gorshkov and Ivanov became notable cases.
Yes. Ivanov got 4 years, Gorshkov 3, after being successfully apprehended and prosecuted in the U.S. Gorshkov was deported. Ivanov, interestingly, pursued a legitimate tech career in the U.S. afterwards.
Suggesting potential for redemption.
In a complex way. The significance is profound. Collaboration with the FBI marked a pivotal moment, transforming PayPal from insurgent tech firm to a key player in digital crime prevention. The story highlights harnessing skills constructively, the need for better law enforcement understanding. Levchin PayPal exceeded industry security standards in this fight.
Beyond crime, they were simultaneously battling intense competition, particularly with eBay guerrillas. This battle resumed fiercely after cooling slightly.
Context is key. Fall 2000. Tech landscape reeling, but eBay was celebrating huge success, $3 plus market cap, impressive growth. Their option model was resilient.
PayPal execs, especially David Sachs, were deeply concerned over eBay's own payment service, BillPoint.
Yeah. Funded and prioritized by eBay, BillPoint began direct, aggressive competition, lower fees, quicker access to funds, alarming PayPal.
eBay made strategic adjustments to push BillPoint, integrating it, changing default.
Tried to. Launched features like Buy It Now to promote BillPoint. But initial moves were plagued by technical failures, poor user experience, damaging trust in BillPoint.
Creating openings for PayPal.
Exactly. PayPal cleverly leveraged this dissatisfaction. eBay faced backlash from sellers about BillPoint's problems, feeling pushed. PayPal capitalized, highlighting better service, reliability, tailored offerings for eBay sellers.
Even amidst competition, moments of attempted diplomacy, Hoffman and Chestnut talking.
Right. Difficult discussions trying to navigate. Source underscores importance of user loyalty here. User loyalty can often outweigh corporate strategies. PayPal's deep roots with eBay power sellers gave them a moat.
Strategic debates internally at PayPal. Thiel versus Sachs.
Thiel saw the X.com Confinity fight as existential, leading to merger. Sachs focused on winning after the merger, specifically by doubling down on strategies to capture and keep the lucrative eBay seller market.
eBay faced its own dilemma. Growing dependence on PayPal versus considering a massive deal with Citibank.
Right. That Citibank partnership posed a huge threat to PayPal. Internal discussions at eBay were split by PayPal, build a competitor, or partner.
PayPal's marketing strategies were aggressive, guerrilla style.
Very. Instant sign-up bonuses, preferred customer service, bespoke tools for eBay sellers gave them an edge over BillPoint's less focused approach.
The classic example, guerrilla marketing at eBay Live. The t-shirts.
Oh, yeah. Huge, unsanctioned pre-event nearby, distributing thousands of t-shirts. PayPal, the official payment system of eBay users.
Wow.
A direct shot, distracting from eBay's efforts, reinforcing PayPal's connection to actual users.
Highlighting the intense nature of the competition fought with savvy marketing and understanding user loyalty.
A battle for the soul of online commerce payments. PayPal's focus on the user, especially power sellers, proved incredibly effective.
As they battled all this, they also had eyes on a bigger prize, global ambition, and the IPO journey.
Exactly. The source highlights world domination as an internal concept, revealing the scale of their aspiration. Musk and Thiel, from early Confinity days, envisioned a universal payment system transcending borders, their internal tracker, the World Domination Index.
Speaks volumes. By late 2000, noting growing internet use in Asia-Europe. Opportunity.
Massive opportunity to serve foreign auction sellers. They also foresaw intersection with fundraising foreign investors, seemed more optimistic than the pessimistic U.S. market post-crash.
But international expansion came with significant operational challenges. Complex regulations, tech requirements.
Immense challenges. Navigating arcane European banking regulations, tech for currency conversion, language barriers, local banking protocols required extensive, complex back-end changes.
Initial strategy was simple. U.S. dollars first, then localized offerings via joint ventures.
Right. Securing international partnerships was seen as vital co-branding, funding, navigating local markets, mitigating competition. Those source notes delays unmet promises with white label products sometimes.
Applying for UK electronic money license was a big step.
Allowed them to operate more freely across Europe under one framework. Navigating industry scrutiny also intensified globally.
Particularly due to links to online gambling. High margin, but risky.
Yeah, seen internally as necessary diversification from eBay, source of crucial revenue. Led to ongoing debates about ethical dilemmas versus profitability, potential regulatory pressure.
David Sachs emphasized a strategic, selective approach to market entry.
Right. Target regions close to existing services, demonstrable need, avoid direct confrontation with giants like Amazon initially, pick battles.
The first Internet Finance Conference in Beijing was a pivotal moment for recognition in China.
Provided legitimacy, allowed them to capitalize on emerging online payment appetite there, so laying groundwork for international dominance, diversifying beyond eBay. Partnerships crucial, but maybe limited independence sometimes.
All this ambition, effort, battles building toward the major milestone, blindsided. The journey to IPO. Context is critical. Struggling tech market, summer 2000 onwards, Musk's thermonuclear IPO prediction versus grim reality.
Pets.com crash, $2 trillion market cap loss, tech IPO window slam shut. Amidst this, PayPal set an incredibly ambitious internal goal: monthly profitability by August 2001.
Crucial because only 14% of companies IPOing then were profitable beforehand. Believed profitability would convince skeptics.
Push so intense it led to cost cutting, like charging for snacks?
Yeah, small detail, but telling. Hilariously prompted employees to create an internal store using PayPal for purchases. Creativity under pressure.
To motivate the team, Thiel proposed that humorous wager: dye his hair blue if they hit profitability in Aug 2001. Symbolized commitment, heightened resolve.
Pushing toward IPOs seen as necessary means to raise capital, establish market value. Began the process, selecting Morgan Stanley as underwriter.
But IPO process faced delays even before external events. September 2001, internal challenges at Morgan Stanley, analysts raising concerns about projections, stalled things. Incredibly frustrating for Thiel and team.
Then the unimaginable happened. After a frustrating meeting in NY Sept 10th,
Some returned Sept 11th to a nation in shock. Attacks halted financial markets, significantly reduced PayPal traffic initially.
the employee response to 9/11 was remarkable, though, rallying for relief efforts.
Quickly set up donation initiatives for Red Cross, raised over $2 million via PayPal. Even then, subtle awareness of eBay's response efforts, competitive instincts close to surface.
In wake of 9/11, market struggling, IPO became even more uncertain. Many pulled filings.
Yet, Peter Thiel made a bold, strategic, almost contrarian decision. Sept 28, 2001, amidst bleak climate, he filed the S-1 registration with the SEC.
Strategic timing because others hesitated.
Exactly. Thiel believed going public then, competition low, could paradoxically position them favorably. Drew on philosophical ideas, mimetic desire. Saw it as affirming best of capitalist West amidst madness.
Despite determination, faced negative press, questioning sustainability, profitability, eBay dependence.
Thiel, frustrated by portrayal, felt strengths overlooked. Yet, company remained fiercely determined to proceed. Seen as essential for future, market position. Test of resilience.
All those years of struggle, pivots, battles, pushing for profitability led to the finish line, achieving the IPO and eventually the acquisition by eBay.
The source calls the IPO chapter Outlaws, referencing their disruptive nature, defiance of conventional wisdom. Despite costs, PayPal did achieve monthly profitability by end of 2001.
Thiel highlighted this financial health on the roadshow. Potential for profit increase with volume.
Yes. And crucially, diversification was paying off. Transactions beyond eBay growing, reducing risk, countering a major criticism.
Filed S-1 shortly after 9/11, targeting early 2002 IPO amidst tentatively rebounding market. Early filing meant excessive SEC scrutiny.
Right. Preparations intensified, restricting info flow. Also faced multiple legal challenges during preps, feeling designed to derail them.
The Circto patent infringement suit resulted in delays.
Yes. Notably, PayPal, encouraged by Thiel, refused to settle, viewing it as coercive extortion, leveraging IPO timing. Fighting added strain but cultivated resolve. Strategic refusal to pay off perceived threats.
To state regulation issues added last-minute complications. Louisiana barred operations.
Early Feb 2002, weeks before IPO, triggered urgent actions to reinstate operations, address licensing in multiple states, crucial for schedule. Faced scrutiny but rapidly engaged regulators reassured them. Proactivity key.
Amidst all this, PayPal proceeded. IPO date Feb 15, 2002. Successful despite climate.
Major feat for a tech company, then. Source confirms successful debut, though not exact price.
Leadership demographic discussed. Average age late 20s raised concerns.
Yeah, investors' underwriters preferred seasoned execs.
Yeah.
But leadership's confidence persuaded team to stick with young group, emphasizing innovative ideas as assets.
Significance of IPO was immense. For Thiel, triumph through perseverance. For Musk, liquidity catalyst for SpaceX.
Pivotal. For employees, overwhelming pride, joy, culmination of shared struggles, teamwork, palpable excitement, belonging, recognition. Handling reflected culture, resilience, unity, transparency, trust.
PayPal IPO was an outlier then. First major tech offering post 9/11, signaling cautious resurgence. Source mentions community personal relationships, avoiding insider trading issues.
Yeah, importance of trust loyalty within that close-knit group.
Then came, and all I got was a t-shirt, the acquisition. Titles suggest complex feelings. Stock price drop post-IPO. eBay competition intensified again.
Source mentions drop, common then. eBay competition definitely intensified, perhaps seeing public valuation as new target.
eBay negotiations resumed, dynamic changed. PayPal's profitable results initially decreased merger likelihood.
Led to more hostility. Negotiations resumed later, especially after news eBay was seriously considering that massive Citibank deal threat pushed both sides back. eBay execs used playful code names.
Aftermath of guerrilla marketing, t-shirt campaign, still relevant, showed PayPal's strong ties to eBay users.
Forced eBay to acknowledge PayPal's significance, value to their own platform. Not just a vendor, deeply embedded.
So why sell after achieving profitability, successful IPO, fighting so hard for independence?
Source points to immense pressure, exhaustion on PayPal team from constant, draining competition with eBay. Psychological war, allure of financial security, mitigating risks of ongoing hostilities outweighed ambition to remain independent forever.
The quote, "Just because someone shoots 5 bullets at you and misses does not preclude the 6th one from killing you," encapsulates vulnerability.
Perfectly. Despite surviving multiple near-death experiences, remained vulnerable to eBay's next move. Acquisition increasingly viewed as most resilient path for long-term survival, growth, even sacrificing independence.
Acquisition by eBay culminated these talks, July 2002, transformed dynamics.
Shifted narrative from rivalry to interdependence. PayPal became integral to eBay's processing. Facilitated mutual growth, allowed PayPal to scale more rapidly, securely within eBay. eBay phasing out bill point showed recognition of PayPal's dominance. Collaboration yielded better results.
Marked end of PayPal's independence, but maintained unique culture within eBay for a while. Still face legacy issues like gambling subpoenas.
Right. Success doesn't erase all past complexities. Story wraps with farewell party, reflections, lighthearted moments looking back. Execs emphasize contributions, mission, framing acquisition not as defeat, but critical transition, ensuring impact continued.
Core lesson. Adaptability, strategic positioning, knowing when to pivot. Resilience isn't just enduring, it's recognizing when letting go of original vision is most resilient path.
Exactly, for long-term sustainability and greater impact.
Wow. What an incredible journey this source lays out from those disparate origins and early struggles. Through intense competition, dramatic internal power battles, the existential fight against fraud, figuring out how to make money, aiming for global reach, surviving a turbulent IPO, and ultimately being acquired by a former rival.
It really reinforces the impact of the key figures. Levchin's technical brilliance and quiet resilience. Thiel's strategic mind finding opportunity in chaos. Musk's ambitious persistence even when causing conflict. Their individual strengths, flaws, interactions under pressure profoundly shaped the company.
We've pulled out some core lessons based on the sources. The value of embracing failure as learning. The sheer power of adaptability and resilience against constant challenges. The crucial importance of listening to your users even when they're absolutely furious with you.
And the sources highlight the challenges and necessity of strategic partnerships, the complex and often brutal dynamics of leadership in high-growth environments, and the tough, sometimes ethically ambiguous decisions required for business sustainability and survival.
Okay, here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over, drawing on the themes we've explored. Consider how many times PayPal seemed to face an existential threat competition, fraud, internal chaos, regulations, market crash, just finding a business model before running out of cash. What does their survival and eventual success, despite being shot at from so many directions, tell us about navigating seemingly insurmountable obstacles in your own life or ventures?
Or reflect on the idea that achieving stability or winning sometimes requires letting go of that initial cherished vision of perfect independence. When is compromise or even acquisition by a former foe the most pragmatic, resilient path forward for the long-term impact of what you've built?
And finally, think about how skills honed in incredibly challenging circumstances. Levchin's resilience post-Chernobyl, Thiel's competitive drive, Musk's persistence, even the hacker's technical prowess. Think about how those powerful skills can be redirected for positive or negative transformative outcomes. It's a story about the power of human capability applied in different ways.
The story of PayPal, as told in The Founders, is really a testament to the unpredictable, messy, often irrational, yet ultimately transformative power of human ambition, technological innovation, and sheer perseverance against relentless challenges.
Thank you for bringing us the sources for this absolutely fascinating deep dive. We hope you feel a little more well-informed about the wild ride that was the Founders and the improbable birth of PayPal.